Welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday morning series. So, Scott, my topic for today is the three P's of recovery. And while this is going to feel like it's gauged to addict partners, I want, if you are a betrayed partner, I'm hoping that you will pay attention to this because this is also something that you can pay attention to if your addict partner is doing these things. So, hang on. Bye, kitty. Um, sorry. So this started out as the topic of perseverance kept coming to mind for me. And as I was doing some research to look into, what does perseverance, in recovery look like and what would be the signs, what I found was the three P's of recovery, which is patience, persistence, and perseverance. So I'm going to share some information, and I know Scott will have some great, input on this as well. So I I had to laugh because patience, I always have said, is not my strongest suit. And what I have learned with all of these things is it's about practicing these. You may or may not be a patient person, but you can always build muscles towards these things. So it's like resilience. All of these things we can learn and we can grow into. So patience, this involves physical, emotional, and mental. Healing takes time and progress isn't linear. And I know that that's a hard concept. Both for both, the addict partner and the betrayed partner, it's like, well, we're on this journey and we just want to keep making progress and have everything, be moving towards the good. And that isn't the case. Beware of small steps forward as they contribute to the overall recovery and healing. Patience isn't being passive, and I really appreciated this aspect. It's not just about just waiting, but the phrase that they came up with when I was doing the research was active acceptance, and I really had to pause on that one. Active acceptance of the process required to change and heal. And then I was thinking about like if you have a major medical thing and you're doing your healing, things are happening even if you don't see them happening, but there's a process for healing. And I really likened it to that. And then I felt more like, oh, I can understand the active acceptance of like, okay, I've had a major medical thing, you have surgery and it takes 6 weeks to recover, so I'm going to be making progress, but it's not going to be like I had surgery and now I'm all better. And so I likened it to that, where if I'm seeing some progress, little bits at a time, like, oh, I can see that my healing is happening, not as fast as I want, but I can see that. So being patient allows individuals to acknowledge that there are ups and downs, and it takes time to break free of the binding chains of addiction. And I often use that analogy as like, people think, oh, I won't have any control if I don't have my addiction. And what they don't understand is that they are so shackled by the addiction, that they are not free. It's an illusion and a delusion, if we think that. So there is a reason we talk about one day at a time, in our recovery programs. And it really helps if we are mindful of every little progress towards ultimate recovery. And that's hard sometimes because, again, we're looking for big changes. But if we're able to look at the little breadcrumbs of progress, that can help. It also allows for self forgiveness, reducing feelings of guilt and shame, helping to promote emotional healing and reducing the risk of relapse. And so then I pulled this about self forgiveness. Self forgiveness is a critical component of addiction treatment due to its profound impact on psychological well being and the therapeutic process. Those struggling with addiction often carry a heavy burden of guilt and shame for past behaviors and mistakes. The emotional load can be a significant barrier to recovery and can fuel negative self-perceptions and drive individuals further into addictive behaviors by means of escape. By fostering self-forgiveness, individuals are encouraged to let go of those harsh judgments and accept their past. So, and I share this as part of patience because Like self-forgiveness doesn't happen overnight either. So we have to, if we choose to, we have to be patient on our journey of self-forgiveness. We are not going to magically go, oh, now I recognize all these things and I'm going to, be in a place where I can forgive myself and let go of that shame and, have emotional and mental health. No, but we can learn. So recognizing we are not solely defined by our mistakes, we can have compassion, which can decrease the feelings of shame, increase self-esteem, and boost motivation for change. Self-forgiveness can play an integral role in breaking the cycle of addiction and, and facilitating a more sustainable path to recovery. And this all takes patience. To develop patience, set realistic expectations, and this is crucial. I think we so often on all levels of everything have unrealistic expectations of like, oh, I've been in recovery for 3 weeks, so I should be all better, or my partner should have, understand what empathy is and have remorse for, what they've done and everything. That is an unrealistic expectation and will cause frustration at the very least, but strife and often relapse. There's no quick fix. This is really the marathon. This isn't the sprint. Mindfulness and meditation can help. Connecting with others who are on this path can help with acceptance even during challenging times. So before I go into persistence, anything that you would like to add on patience? You're muted.
No, let's go ahead and go through and then
Okay.
I'm making notes, but
okay. All right. Then I'm going to keep going. So persistence. Now this one I actually like. I don't like patience. I like persistence. This is pivotal on the journey for recovery. It is the driving force that propels us as individuals through an often challenging process of healing. Despite setbacks and hurdles, and I often say there are so many speed bumps along the way, persistence cultivates resilience, fostering courage to continue the journey despite the odds. It's an affirmation of one's commitment to health, wellness, and positive change. So this is long-term goals. So long-term goals substantially influence the road to recovery. Setting a clear destination and visualizing the path to recovery and healing increases motivation and determination, even in the face of adversity. This also provides a means of measuring progress and tangible improvements. So long-term goals encourage consistency and patience, crucial for recovery journeys that require sustained effort over time. This also fosters resiliency. Mentally, establish clear goals and consistently remind oneself of positive outcomes associated with achieving the goals. Emotionally, having support systems to help reinforce these goals and positive outcomes. Be intentional and notice small victories along the way, as it helps to encourage confidence and continued persistence. It is worth taking time to reflect on how far you have come and progress that has been made. This reflection can serve as a reminder of one's hard work and dedication, providing motivation to continue onward. This also serves as an opportunity to make adjustments if needed to refine the behaviors and actions that have been taken, identifying things that are not working well or can be improved. This can also serve to celebrate the small successes along the way. Whether big or small, it is important to recognize and honor the progress along the way. So this is not like, oh, you get to ignore the things that aren't going well. But in order to be motivated to continue, we have to see that we are making some progress. Perseverance. I also like this one. So I'm not so much on patience and more on persistence and perseverance. This is the lifeblood of successful healing process. It is adopting a mindset of resilience, tirelessly working towards personal health, physical, mental, spiritual goals, despite hurdles and setbacks. As mentioned before, recovery is not a linear process. It is made up of peaks and valleys. Perseverance is what fuels the journey through these ups and downs, ensuring we remain steadfast in our commitment to heal and improve regardless of the challenges we face. To develop perseverance, we start with clear, realistic, and achievable goals. We mentioned that earlier. Get help to do this, as it is not natural for someone in addiction. And I think partners can struggle with this, too, of having clear goals, sometimes called boundaries. This will create a roadmap to stay focused and motivated. Practice mindfulness and meditation, as these reduce stress and improve mental strength. Support groups, counseling with a qualified professional, connection with others on this path, these all help. Maintain a healthy lifestyle, including healthy eating, exercise, movement, sleep, and healthy connections with others. So, patience, perseverance, and persistence form the foundation for achieving successful recovery. The journey will have challenges and setbacks, yet it is the unswerving commitment to patience, never rushing the process, that lays a solid foundation. Perseverance, the ability to continue despite difficulties, fuels the long journey. Persistence, the act of never giving up or standing down, ensures a lasting commitment to recovery. These three virtues synergistically work together, and they really light the path to healing and growth. So that's my 3 Ps of recovery.
Cool. Thank you. I do have some comments here, so
Please.
or some additions. Okay. You mentioned addiction being shackles. A lot of times I'll ask guys who come to like my sex addiction 101 or porn addiction 101 online work group, um, why are you here? And they always, oh, I want to save my relationship. Okay, why else are you here? Um, and eventually we get down to, I want some freedom. They've addicts, we are ready to get sober when we realize addiction has taken our choices in life away from us. Um, so yeah, I loved that analogy of shackles, but these are shackles we put on ourselves, and they're comfortable. We've grown used to them. Um, it takes patience to pick that lock, and we have to pick it more than once usually to free ourselves. And it does take patience. You mentioned self-forgiveness under patience. Um, it's not just addicts who need self-forgiveness, by the way. It's partners. Um,
Yes.
partners, y'all tend to beat yourselves up because why am I with this person? Why would I put myself through this? What? Well, think about it as if you're the parent of a child and the child has gone off the rails. You don't question that. That's your child. You love them. You're choosing to still stay in a relationship with them. Well, why should your partner be any different? But because a partner is someone we choose rather than someone who nature gives us, um, we can beat ourselves up. So self-forgiveness is there too. Um, you know, and both addicts and betrayed partners, we have shame about our behaviors. We have shame from early childhood, from our trauma, and we got to work through 2 levels of shame. If I'm an addict, I'm working through my childhood carried shame that was taught to me when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, um, and the shame about my current, or recent behavior. And betrayed partners go through the same thing. There's childhood trauma with shame, and then there's this whole, shame about my relationship's not perfect. Um, yeah, and you mentioned especially with patients, realistic expectations. Um, I'll speak, myself as an addict. You know, I I wanted a parade like at 30 days. You know, I was like, woohoo, look at me. Well, the world should celebrate. No, no. And I also wanted all the people responsible for my problem to come and apologize and make amends, which was really not realistic, because my problem was mine. Um, you know, um, and it wasn't until I worked step 4 that I realized, oh, I'm the asshole that's screwing up my life, because I had been blaming all of you for a long time. It really takes persistence. I mean, there are 12 steps in the 12-step program. You don't just read them on the wall and absorb them and you're well. And there are 12-step programs for partners too, by the way. And yeah, you got to work them. It takes persistence, and it's 2 steps forward, it's 1 step back. It's 1 day at a time, it's 1 hour at a time, it's 1 minute at a time. Um, so yeah, patience is it can be the tough one. But you spent more time talking about patience, and I spent probably more time talking about patience than I'm going to talk about the others, because recovery doesn't happen overnight. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I always say recovery is a journey, and it doesn't actually end. It's just a journey. So stop and smell the roses, enjoy the progress. Um, you know, as for persistence, you mentioned goals. Again, when I'm working with addicts, but this applies to anybody, I like circle plans. Circle plans are something that was invented for sexual recovery. I'm in AA as well, and I've done circle plans with AA sponsees because it's problem behaviors, slippery behaviors, healthy behaviors. But all circle plans or sexual sobriety plans or even boundaries, if you're a betrayed partner and you want to set boundaries, you need to know what your goals are. What am I trying to accomplish here? So I always asked addicts, again, what are your goals? We start out with save my relationship. Then we get into things like, I want to repair my self-esteem. I want to have better coping mechanisms. I want to be happy. I want to feel comfortable in my own skin. And these are the things that keep addicts in recovery. Wanting to fix the relationship gets an addict in the door. Having a better life keeps an addict in the door. Um, I can't speak for betrayed partners because I'm not one, but I suspect it's pretty similar. I'm here because I want a better relationship, but I stay here because I want a better life. Um, and the long-term goals, you mentioned long-term goals and persistence, but short-term goals are also important as markers of progress. As I'm going to do 30 and 30, 30 meetings in 30 days. Okay, that's a short-term goal. That leads me toward my long-term goal. If we don't know what our goals are, you know, I, I used to write a lot of fiction, and one of the things I learned was don't start writing until I know how it ends. If I don't know how the story ends, don't bother writing because I'll never get there. Um, so long-term goals are I'm happy, I'm comfortable in my own skin. I have better relationships. I'm more intimately connected. And then my short-term goals will get me from point A to point B, or point A to B and B to C and C to D, and eventually get to Z. And perseverance, you know, when you're walking through hell, don't stop. Don't sit down to enjoy the view. Keep walking. You'll get to the other side and it'll be much better. That's perseverance. And perseverance for addicts, definitely, but I think also for betrayed partners, requires support. We do not, especially addicts, again, we do not do well on our own. I tried to quit on my own and failed to quit on my own for years. When I finally went to a proper ass therapist, pardon my language, who understood addiction and made me go to 12 step, hey, guess what? I got sober. Wow. Because I had some help. People who understood what I was going through. That's perseverance, is picking up the phone and calling your support network and saying, oh my God, my partner's driving me crazy, or oh my God, the addict's driving me crazy. Um, you know, um, so yeah, great topic, but please, please, please think about recovery as a journey. Um, and it makes patience and persistence and perseverance a little easier. And journeys can be fun. Life is a journey. Enjoy it. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, thanks for all that input. And I do think a lot of this is probably earlier times, stuff, because you are having a hard time seeing through the weeds, so, or
Mhm.
you're in hell and you're going like, all I see is flames.
Yeah.
So, but my goal was, yes, have, get the vision, and I loved one of the things I read and I shared was oh, I forgot what it was, but it is about that long term and just understanding, that this is, if you continue to do these things, good things will happen. I do think it's important. I like to have measurable goals. The SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, all of those things. So and time. So I think I love 30 meetings in 30 days. Great. I don't have a sponsor. I'm going to work on getting a sponsor by the end of next week. Great. I mean, those kind of things. I'm going to start working my steps. If I'm dawdling on step 4, I'm going to commit to, having my 4th step done, by mid-September, whatever it is. Those are very specific and
Yeah.
shorter term goals. Somebody asked, what is a long-term goal? And you talked about having a happy life. And
Yeah.
that's nice, but having a happy life for me would look like,
Yeah.
yes. Drilling down on like,
And there are steps to get there. An example of that, this is probably about 10 years ago. I was carrying resentments from people I hadn't seen since childhood, middle school, high school. You know, I was carrying resentments and I was like, I got to get rid of these, which was a long-term happiness, comfortable in my own skin goal. But I broke it down into, okay, this is the year of getting rid of my resentments. Okay. So okay, list my resentments. Okay. Pick the worst one. Let's work on it. And the way I worked on them was 1 month on each resentment, and pray for the person I was holding a resentment against 3 times a day, for them to have all the things that I would want for myself and my loved ones in life. Pray for that for them. The first 10 days is like, I'm a total fraud doing this. I don't mean it. The second 10 days, I'm just annoyed. And the third 10 days, my resentment goes away. And, over the course of a year, I let resentments go. And then a couple of them I had to do more than once. But, you know, those people are not taking up space rent free in my head anymore. And I'm much happier because of it. So it was the long term overarching true north goal of being happier. But what do I need to do to get there? And then break it down. And, it was a year of work. That's persistence and patience and perseverance. Um, but boy, was it worth it. Oh my God. I mean, one of the best books in recovery is called Drop the Rock. And I felt like I dropped a big, giant boulder. Um, so worth it. So, yeah.
yeah, and I love that you talked about it's a long-term goal, and and even that more, intangible of like a happier life. But you had a long-term goal of this year, so that's a
Right.
longer term, and then you broke it down by month.
Yeah.
And even in the 10-day increments, you were probably going like, these first 10 days are going to suck. The middle
Yeah.
10 days aren't going to be so bad. The next 10 days are, going to be a little better. And then you're going to go back to the suck
Go
again.
back and do it all over again.
So,
And there were lots of little goals like who am I, which resentments and, all that stuff. Yeah.
and you know what? I was thinking when you're talking, my experience with resentments is they are a burden to me. Other people, they may not even know or care, or might be happy that you have a resentment and you're wasting energy on them. So the
Yeah.
person that it hurts is
Yeah.
is us. So and there's lots of long-term goals, and I mean, it can be about recovery. It can be
Mhm.
about like, I wanted to learn to do whatever. And
Yeah.
I've always not done it because, and now I'm
Right.
going to commit to, going back to school or taking
Yeah.
whatever, so I think it's like having the opportunity to visualize, what is it I'm really looking to do, rather than having just life happen. If I'm being intentional about what do I want to do on this planet, in my time that I'm here, and goals can be subject to change, like people will
Oh
go, I
yeah.
have a 5-year goal, but there might be an opportunity that comes along and you go, well, that was a great plan then, but now this is a better plan. Great. But you're still working towards something, and then open to the, other opportunities along the way. So we have a question. Addict here, 6 months sober, sees a CSAT regularly and currently on step 4. Yay. Self-disclosed partially 8 months ago, did not plan for disclosure early in recovery. I saw your face. I agree. Are there any helpful resources to heal my shame and show up for my relationship even before disclosure takes place? I assume you're going to do a formal therapeutic disclosure with your both of you having a qualified professional. That's what I'm reading into this. So that's the assumption we're making.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's tons of resources for you to work on your shame and show up for your relationship before disclosure. You absolutely need to be doing those things. Full therapeutic disclosure is a therapeutic process. You have a therapist, your partner has a therapist, so you both have support. Um, Usually, right around the 6 month mark, give or take a few months in one direction, is when you would like to have a full therapeutic disclosure, but that schedule depends on the couple, and um, it can be faster or slower. Um, that's for the benefit of mostly the betrayed partner and the relationship. The betrayed partner now knows everything. He or she knows they know everything. They can now make intelligent decisions based on all the facts moving forward. And usually that decision is, okay, I want to stay together, but here are my boundaries. Um, and then the relationship can move forward, and they often end up being much better than ever. I mean, Tammy and I both see this with couples they've both done the work and they've stayed together and they come out the other side and they're like, our relationship is better than ever. Because it can be, because it's finally honest, fully honest and emotionally connected, which it probably wasn't before if there's an addict in the house. Um, as far as healing your shame, showing up for your relationship, oh my goodness. First of all, get sober. That helps with shame. Get sober and stay sober. Stop lying. That helps with shame. Um, you know, Brene Brown has the best quotes about shame. Shame thrives in darkness. It withers in sunlight. It's like mushrooms. The darker it is, the better it does. Um, you put it out in sunlight, and it kind of shrivels up and goes away. You want to work on your shame. Check it, reality check it, talk about it. Find a support network, 12-step groups, an online work group. Um, Reality check it. That really helps with shame. Um, Showing up for your relationship, take our Out of the Doghouse work group or our Healthy Intimacy work group, which starts tomorrow, by the way, if you want to take healthy intimacy. Um, and Learn about emotional connection, learn about telling the truth in ways that are helpful rather than hurtful. Um, there's so many things you can do. I could probably talk the rest of the thing, but I'm going to shut up and let Tammy go.
Well, I went to finish your 4 step,
Yeah,
steps 4 through 9 are the housekeeping steps. You want to get rid of the shame, 4 through 9, dig
yeah,
in, do them. And your 4 step isn't what you'll share in your formal therapeutic disclosure, but you will have a lot of content. It will expedite the process. And you want to heal your relationship, you want to work towards healing your relationship. Your poor partner is sitting there with some information and wondering what the heck.
yeah,
So the sooner you are able to show up and do your formal therapeutic disclosure, having, like, do the work. I mean, like, there's no, like, oh, just, I love books, don't get me wrong, but, like, it's not about reading a book or doing, like, do this work,
mhm,
and that will start to shift things. We start to change when we work steps 4 through 9. If we're,
yeah,
it's a searching and fearless moral inventory. If we show up and do it with the best honesty we can, and your sponsor will help you, your CSET can help you, that's what starts to make, shifts. But it isn't like this is just all the horrible stuff I've done. A searching and fearless moral inventory is both sides of the, accounting. And so here's my liabilities and here's my assets. So, and what I found was a lot of my liabilities were my assets on steroids. They went awry. And so, so learning that, okay, that didn't work, but if I use this for good, then, like, just like Scott was talking about, bring it out into the sunlight. If I'm
yeah,
doing this thing, for self-serving, whatever, that's not good. If I do this, in a very different way, it is, and so it isn't like, oh, I'm all horrible and all these terrible things and all that. It's like, these are the things I've done. I'm taking accounting. I'm moving forward, and with all due respect, you are very early in this process. 6 months, great, you get a chip, but your partner didn't know. You
Right.
did. Your partner didn't. So your partner is at 6 months of like, oh my gosh. And partners healing, there's a trajectory and there will be healing. And it's like I mentioned earlier, peaks and valleys. So it isn't like, oh, I'm just making progress and things are getting
Right.
better. So it's a journey. And like Scott said, if the two of you are on this journey and you're willing to do the work, there's a gap right now, but you have a goal of, we want to have a healthy relationship, and your CSATs can help you identify what that is, and if we're moving towards each other on that relationship, like it can be really good.
Yeah.
So persevere, be patient, but do the work.
Yeah.
This is the be persistent. Make a commitment with your CSAT sponsor. I mean, with your 12-step sponsor. Like, I want to do my 4-step by this time. If you don't have a formal therapeutic
Right.
disclosure set yet, set that. Having those time frames will show
Yeah.
your partner that I'm committed to this process and I'm going to do the work. The more you dawdle and stall in this, guess what? You're
Yeah.
sitting in the shame. So
Yeah. And Tammy, I love what you said about the steps. Steps 4 and 5 are this reality check. You know, I start to see my part in my life. 6 and 7, I identify and start working on my character defects. That's a lifelong process, at least it is for me. 8 and 9 are about amends. It's about making things right. Um, if you want to feel better about yourself, make things right. Clean up the wreckage of your past to the best of your ability. And then step 10 is keeping yourself on track. And 11 and 12 are, higher power and helping others. Um, but 4 through 9, we call them the action steps of recovery. And they are the steps where we start feeling better about ourselves. 4 is tough because, it brings up all the crap we've done. So we start to feel our shame. But by the time we get to 9, we've cleaned up our side of the street. And that really helps.
and 4 is tough because, and I honestly, 5 was huge for me to was freeing because
Yeah.
I just knew for sure as soon as I shared my 4-step, somebody
Yeah.
was going to go, oh my God, like you are beyond the pale, we can't help you. And they went, yep, okay. And it was all of this
Yeah.
acceptance. And I remember, like you're talking about the boulder, I just remember going, oh my gosh, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough to write all that stuff and see it in black and white, and if I'm willing to do the work and my amends, you talk about the amends, like that. It wasn't like I ran around and said sorry, sorry, sorry. I was ready and available to do them, and people, like, it was crazy, like, in a bookstore and in a community center, people that I had on my list, would come in. I didn't have to go running around to them. I The people that were closest to me, it was living amends. Those were the people that, like, sorry wasn't going to cut it. It was like, I need to show you with my actions, and that was the people, family members, the people closest to me, and I have, continued, on that path. So, and yes, like the 10, 11, 12, I love them. Those are the maintenance steps, and I practice those, in all areas of my life. And that's why we talk about recovery takes, 2 to 5 years, because it takes us that long to figure out how to do this in all areas of our life. It isn't compartmentalized. I'm going to go do my recovery work, and then I'm going to do the rest of my work, which causes problems. I'm I'm going to show up with integrity to the best of my ability. I'm going to make amends when needed. All of those things, we learn to live that. And guess what? People in our lives see that, and those are qualities that are, that give people the ability to trust us again, and us to trust ourselves again, so stay the course, do the work. So, um, how do you measure building empathy?
Um, First of all, empathy is there are different kinds of empathy. There's physical empathy, there's intellectual empathy, and there's emotional empathy, which is what I call true empathy. Physical empathy, this is the example I always give. I apologize to anybody who's offended by it, but I used to play softball, slow pitch softball, and I'm a line drive hitter, and I would smoke everything right up the middle. And the pitcher is 40 feet away in slow pitch softball. So at least once or twice a season, I would catch the pitcher with a
Mm,
screaming line drive in the family jewels. And
mm,
every man in about a 3 mile radius, whether he saw it or not, would grab his own junk and go, oh, because that's physical empathy. Um, Men are pretty good about physical empathy. We're not so great at the other ones, typically, and addicts are bad at empathy, all forms of it. Intellectual empathy is I can figure out what you're feeling. Oh, you're probably feeling this and this. And you're like, yeah, but also this and this. And be like, oh, really? Um, that's intellectual empathy. Emotional empathy, you're in pain. I'm in pain. I'm feeling your pain with you. You're happy. I'm happy because you're happy. I'm literally happy with you. I'm feeling your emotions with you I'm feeling your emotions with you in real time. That's true empathy. Um, how do you measure building empathy? You ask the people around you. Uh, they'll tell you. Um, you know, betrayed partners often say to the addict, if you only understood the pain I'm in, and 9 times out of 10, that's what the betrayed partner wants, is just understand the pain I'm in. And guess what, addicts? When you understand the pain you've caused, you don't want to cause it anymore. Um, Empathy is a huge step in recovery, um, but don't expect it to happen in the first couple of months because not so much. I was in year 2 when I started actually having empathy. Um, it took a lot of time and effort. Addicts, we basically become narcissists. It's all about me all the time. And I'm not thinking about you at all. When I want to act out, I'm not thinking about you. Even if I love you, I'm not thinking about you. Not in that moment. So, how do you measure building empathy? For me, it was like I was at a meeting, I was at a 12-step meeting, and somebody had lost a pet, which is always horrible. And I had lost pets before. So I knew and I was in pain with them. I was like, oh, this is actually empathy. But then a couple weeks later, I was living in LA at the time, and somebody I knew, and liked, but wasn't close to, but they had just sold a screenplay and they were just ecstatic. And I was so happy. And I was like, why am I happy? I was like, oh my God, I'm having empathy. But this was like a year and a half into recovery. Um, it was a nice feeling, actually. I like having empathy, but how do you measure it? People around you will respond differently. I don't know. Tammy, thoughts?
like your example is exactly it's in 12 step. We learn because somebody will say something and we'll go, oh, I can relate to the shame. I can relate to the guilt. I can
Yeah.
feel what they're feeling, And like you talked about, often empathy is like, I want you to feel how horrible I felt, versus like you just said, I was really happy for this person. So, so it's all encompassing. And as you said, when we are self-absorbed and self-focused in our addiction, we have to be, because if we were paying
Right.
attention to other people, that we
Oh,
would
yeah.
not be able to do what we were going to do. So we have got to be compartmentalized, and cracking those compartments, we start to feel, and it's uncomfortable because we aren't used to it. We are really out of touch with all emotions, which I think is what, to your point of like, we don't do this well.
Right.
So we can learn. It's safer to do it in a 12-step meeting because they're people you care about, but you don't, I mean, it's like you want
Yeah.
good things for them, but if they go, act out, you're not going to go follow them, so you want them to, keep coming back and all that. In a primary relationship, it's harder. There's a lot more attached to it. There's a lot more risk and vulnerability. So it,
Yeah.
but I agree. I often say to partners who are saying, well, I want them to have empathy. And I'm going, this is one of those where you're going to say, and empathy will look like this, like you spell it. It's like, I
And
shouldn't have
have
to tell them
some
that.
patience.
Yes, exactly. This is what I'm looking for. This is
Yeah.
how I will see that you are, gaining some empathy. But just like resiliency and all of those, patience, they are the long term and they require practice. And like you were like, oh, I like feeling happy for my friend, and I like this feeling. Guess what? That's the motivation. Just like we were talking about earlier. It's like, oh, celebrate the small victories. I actually felt something good for somebody else. Yay. And then you know what? I like that feeling. Now I'm going to want to do that again. It builds on itself the more we're able to do that. Now, do you feel great when you feel bad for somebody else? Honestly, yes, because I actually care about that person lost their pet, and I know how that feels, and I liked it when people helped support me, when I lose a pet. So I want to be able to do that. And you're sharing your humanity. So it is, even in that. It isn't like, oh, well, I don't want to feel bad because I don't want to feel sad. No, I want to feel with. It's not about the emotion, it's the feeling with.
Yeah. And by the way, the nature of addiction is I'm an addict. I don't want to feel my own emotions.
Yeah.
I spent 25 years running from my own emotions. I had to learn to feel my own emotions. And then eventually I was able to be in tune with other people's emotions. That's why empathy takes a while. If you're wondering, like, why we can't just turn it off and on, it doesn't work that
And
way.
I didn't have the, like, now those emotion charts, where you could point. I didn't have one of those. I think every new addict, getting into recovery should have one, because we don't know. We don't know. And so, but if you could go, yeah, that's the face I'm feeling, it would
Yeah.
be super helpful. So, and there, you can get them online. So check it out. It may be useful for identifying what you're feeling. So the next question, Scott. Hello, addict messaging. 17 months of sobriety, 25 years of porn addiction, but recent struggle with really sexualizing and fantasizing about my wife while tanning, making inappropriate comments about body parts, and we are currently not having sex in the last 6 weeks, and led to my first wet dream. Just need tips on healthy attraction and intimacy with my wife, and not making her feel used and like I'm seeing her as parts. Scott mentioned the healthy intimacy work group. I'm going to go pull the link for that right now while you
Thank
talk.
you. Yeah, healthy intimacy and sexuality work group starts tomorrow night. Please sign up. You are a primo candidate. Look, you're not acting out with porn, hooray, um, but you're still kind of in a mindset of objectification rather than emotional intimacy. Um, the definition of healthy sex that I use when I'm working with sex addicts is healthy sex is a physical expression of the emotional intimacy that already exists. Um, so, tips on moving forward. Let's get let's get some emotional intimacy. Let's start using the 3 second rule, even if it's your wife that you're sexualizing. You know, um, your wife is not an object; she's a person. um, so start connecting with the person. Um, you know, that's the big thing. And I love that you're attracted to your wife. Awesome. This is good. Um, let's be attracted to all of your wife and not just wife and tanning bed wife. You know, yeah, I mean, I don't want to make her feel like I'm seeing her as parts. And the way to do that is to work on emotional intimacy. And that's probably, I'm guessing you haven't had sex for 6 weeks. It's probably her being like, no, not right now, because she doesn't want to be objectified. One of the most profound things I've heard an addict say was, I was cheating on my wife with my wife. Like I was using my wife as a sex toy and fantasizing about God knows what. Um, and hey, betrayed partners recognize that. It's like, oh, your penis is here. Where's the rest of you? Um, so, you know,
Okay, it made me laugh. So yeah, no, but well, and partners have said, I feel like I'm in his porn, you know, like
Mhm.
he's trying to replicate the
I
porn,
feel
you
like a
know.
receptacle. I feel,
Yes, exactly. All of those things. So there is, you know, and I put the link for both the healthy intimacy that starts tomorrow, but also all of our work groups, because there's
yeah,
others of you that could benefit from, you know, one of those. And I think this is also a conversation with your wife. Like I would ask,
Mhm.
I would talk to her, like, you know, I do find you sexy. You know, how do I express that in a way that, you know, would make you know that you know, that I believe you're sexy, and without minimizing or just going to body parts, you know, like that would be an interesting conversation, you know, say, you know, and say, are you open to sharing this with me? You know,
yeah,
because that's vulnerability. That's, you know,
yeah,
communication on a level that's different. It's, you know, I'm
yeah,
not just doing this. You know, we're having a conversation of what's going to feel good for both of us. Again, we talked about long-term goals, and the, you know, if the
yeah,
relationship is out here and you guys are, you're 6 weeks of being, you know, so there's a gap, you know, so how do we get to a point, you know, where, you know, like you know, I can express that I'm attracted, and you're not going to feel like I'm just objectifying you. And, you know,
right.
she could be your best teacher in that, you know, if she's in a place where you're creating a safe environment, you know, to have those conversations, not being defensive, you know, and going, well, you know, you know, the tanning, you know, no, like, I mean, so be in a place where you're regulated and able to show up for it. It could be a really good next step towards moving towards each other. I'm a betrayed partner. Is it possible for the betrayed partner to feel too much empathy for the addict, and does it cause them to stay when they should go? That's a great question.
Yeah,
And I have thoughts on that. What do you?
I do too. You want to
Mhm.
go first, or you want me to?
Go ahead. I'm going to
Okay.
go pull the should I stay or should I go?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have too much empathy, but I think you can point your empathy in the wrong direction. I have so much empathy for you that I'm just going to fix you. And guess what? You cannot fix another person. You can't. The only person who can fix an addict is the addict. Um, so have as much empathy as you like, but you know, they still have to fix themselves. And you can have empathy for somebody and not, look, I have there's somebody in my life now, but with very serious boundaries, and I have a lot of empathy for this person, but they are not in my day-to-day life because they're not fixing themselves. Um, I still have empathy. I know why they are the way they are. I love them. I do not interact with them unless I have to. Um, so I don't think you can have too much empathy, but I think you can glom on and over attach and try to fix the other person. And that's a different thing than empathy, and it's not healthy. So, Tammy, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's I can recognize that this person has a lot of brokenness, and can have empathy and caring about that person. I can want them to get help. But if I'm now the person that is trying to fix them, it will not work. If I am sacrificing my internal boundaries to try to fix them, it will not help. You know, we've talked on other webinars and things too about having the addict needs to have agency to know that they are the person that's choosing to do this recovery, and then they can, then they can, like I keep showing you, that you can move towards each other. But if you're the only person rowing the boat, you're going to go around in circles. It doesn't work. So I think it would be a great opportunity for you to look at, how is my empathy showing up. If it's a feeling and I'm journaling about, gosh, I have a lot of empathy for the brokenness, but I also have a lot of empathy for me and my pain that I'm going through. I can understand, I can understand that I need to take care of me because this person can't right now, and they need to be on their own journey. So I think for you, it would be interesting to know where it's showing up, how it's showing up, and what you are doing or not doing, some behaviors that could be sacrificing yourself and ultimately not, um, having enough consequence. I'm not saying you create all the consequences, but we get lots of people that come to our residential treatment program that the only reason they're there now is there's some consequence, and it's often relational. Sometimes it's job, but there's a consequence that if they don't do something different, there's going to be a dire consequence to the relationship. So that would be my
Yeah.
wondering about, how is your empathy showing up?
Yeah. And I just want to add to what I said. I don't push everyone away. Um,
No.
if I see you working on yourself, I will actively keep you in my life. Um, you know, whether I have empathy or not. If you're working on yourself, I'm all in. But if you're not, at
Oh,
some point, I'll still have empathy for you, but I'm going to put up the boundary.
boy, and I don't even know if it's all in. Like I'm gonna
Right.
be here, but I'm going to take care of me,
Yeah.
so I see you're working towards that. And if there are things that I can do without sacrificing my internal boundaries, you
Yes.
hear me saying that, guess what? There's two boundaries work groups coming up for partners on,
Yeah.
on our work groups. So check those out. But
Yeah.
if I can, like, I can honor, and cheer you on and all of those things. I'm not going to go do your working on you for you, but I can be, but I also have to hold that tension of like, okay, you're not 100% trustworthy yet, and so I'm going to hold that space of like, I'm going to watch and see what you're doing, and if there are little things I can do to help be supportive, great, but otherwise I'm just going to watch your journey and I'll be here for you, rooting for you. Okay, next question. In that light around feeling like my spouse is still objectifying me, I feel uncomfortable wearing certain clothing around when he visits. Is that something I should adjust, or both of us? Or is it just his work? That's a great question.
Um, yeah. You go first.
Okay. No, because I was like,
I'm formulating.
no, because I'm going, you feel uncomfortable. Like, honor that. Why would you change what you're doing when you don't feel comfortable? Like, if you felt comfortable, you would change what you're doing. So I think it's fair to have the conversation of like, I am not yet ready to change, I'm going to wear whatever. Now, we were talking about this the other day. It's like you could wear a muumuu and he can still be fantasizing. So it is still his work, but this is what do you feel comfortable? How are you going to take care of you? Again, healthy boundaries. I'm going to take care of me because this person has shown me that, this is not yet safe. I'm going to watch and see if this person is doing the work, so that, things can change. And then guess what? You get to change it on whatever pace you feel comfortable with. It's not, from one end to the other. It's like now I'm ready to do this. So I honor your I don't feel comfortable. Okay, that's all I need to know. I don't feel comfortable. And it's fair to share it with that person. Like this, and again, this is what I'm looking to see, in order to build some trust and feel more comfortable. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, actually, I'm 100% in agreement there. If you don't feel comfortable wearing that dress, don't wear it. Um, whether it's him or somebody else that you don't feel comfortable. But I'm going to answer a different question, I think, which is
Okay.
why I was formulating. Um, you know, I if you are working and he is working to save your relationship, um, you and he need to, sorry, fight the problem, not each other. Um, and this is a totally different question, but hey, we got to go to my nephew's wedding and it's a beach wedding and there's going to be like surfers and jiggly volleyball and an open bar. How are we going to handle this? Because if I'm the addict and I see the jiggly volleyball or the hot surfers, I need to respond or not respond a certain way. And if I'm the partner and I see the jiggly volleyball and the hot surfers and the drunk bridesmaids and you know how are we going to handle this? Because we're both going to be possibly triggered. Often in those situations, the betrayed partner is more triggered than the addict, because the partner is wondering, is he fixating on, volleyball, or is he here with me at the wedding? How are we going to handle this? So this is, and you plan in advance for these things. Um, you talk about it, you plan in advance. It's like, okay, this is going to be Trigger City. We have to go. It's my nephew. But how are we going to handle it? You know, okay, what if I squeeze your hand just to let you know I'm here with you? Okay, that'll help. I'm going to keep my sponsor on speed dial. Um, I'm not going to drink. We're not going to drink. Um, I always tell addicts, your job is to make sure your partner knows you're there with her or him, and has a great time. Um, Betrayed partners, you may need to set your boundaries. I'm okay with this, but not this. And, if you want to do a gesture that says, yeah, I see the jiggly volleyball, but I'm here with you, the hand squeeze, whatever. Um, and then we're in agreement on this gesture means I love you. If you want me to look at my feet, I'm gonna look at my feet. Um, but if that's not agreed to in advance, the betrayed partner sees me looking at my feet and says, "Oh, he's triggered." It's different to fight the problem instead of each other. It keeps us out of our own head and in the couple's space in a moment when we need to be in the couple's space. Um,
I love that. And you're right. And we talk about this all the time. You have the conversation. Like you have the conversation. And I love that you're problem solving together on this. And I was thinking when you were talking about like, well, don't wear the dress. And I'm like, but here's the deal. You talked about when he visits. If you love the dress and you feel really
yeah,
sexy in it, wear the dress, and
yeah,
and whether it's with him or not. Like this is about, how are you going to feel comfortable, and if it's like I'm going to wear the dress regardless of what he's doing, even when he visits, because I love my dress, okay, but this is about how can you feel comfortable in your own skin, regardless of what he's doing or not doing, but like I hate when partners feel like I have to hide my sexuality or
right.
change because of something my spouse, is doing or not doing, so it's that's a shift too. It's like I'm going to take care of me, and here's how I'm going to feel comfortable,
Yeah.
and he's got his work to do.
And I just want to say that I just had a little jolt of empathy when Tami was talking about partners who feel like they have to hide their attractiveness and their sexuality. Nobody should have to do that. And I was like, ugh. I had this feeling of sadness and anger and about six different things mixed together at once. So, to the question of how do you know if you're feeling empathy, you'll know. Um, I think that was empathy.
Yeah, yeah, and I did too because I was like, well, but I love
Yeah,
that dress and I want to wear that
yeah,
dress,
and I
and
look good in
it's
it.
not exactly, and I'm going to own it. And then the next one is, isn't it normal to feel sexual feelings when you see nudity or near nudity? And that's different than what was said earlier was objectification and body
Right.
parts. So can you talk a bit about that?
There's a difference between noticing and objectifying. Oh, that person is hot and they're naked. Hmm. Okay. I see that. And yeah, of course, I may have a sexual thought, but if I then cut their head off and focus on the TNA or think about, what I want to do to them or with them, as opposed to, I wonder what kind of person they are. I wonder why they're naked. Um, hmm, maybe they're a little crazy, or whatever it is. Um, if you're turning them into an object, this is something that as addicts we just there's no leeway for us anymore. Um, we don't get to objectify. Non-addicts, they can objectify once in a while, but they don't do it the way we do it. I mean, I had a filter between my eyeballs and my brain that took everyone's clothes off and made them horny for me. I mean, that was the filter. And that's not normal. That's not healthy. It's bad for me. It's bad for the world. It's bad for you know. And I'm not I just can't objectify anymore. If I catch myself objectifying, I have to stop. Noticing is entirely different. Oh, that's an attractive person. Okay, I'm done. Big difference. Um, so
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yes, it's like they're not there for my sexual gratification. It
right,
is that person is sexy. They look great in whatever, or whatever, and move on. I
right.
appreciate that. And then somebody added, "Thank you both." That actually answered a question I didn't know I had too. Appreciate both sides on that. Great, thank you.
Thanks.
And we're at the end of the. So next week, or no, next month, Scott's next month, Scott will have the topic. So we'll see what he brings. But if you haven't signed up for that work group, that may
Yeah,
be exactly what you need.
healthy intimacy and sex starts tomorrow. And it's actually a really fun work group. We have a good time. Um, so yeah. Thank you,
And that
Tami.
would not be you have 5 minutes of recovery. Like this is a higher order one. So start with
Preferably
sex
have some
addiction one. Yeah.
preferably have some sobriety going.
Yes. Sex addiction 101 or porn addiction 101 to lay that foundation. And then then you can join in these higher level ones. So thanks, Scott. Thanks, everyone. Bye.